Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. 7:34 p.m., February 2nd, 2015. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the mayor and council meeting of January 20th, 2015.
So moved that the meetings be approved as presented.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the record show we unanimously pass the minutes. Our second order of business is payment of the bills.
Move that bills be paid as presented.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Moving right along, we unanimously approve the payment of the bills. That brings us to the third item on the agenda, which is a presentation by the Community Power Network.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody?
Good.
Good. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for including us on your busy agenda tonight. I am here on behalf of the Chestertown Environmental Committee to introduce Anya Schoolman and Corey Ramsden from the Community Power Network. Anya and Corey met with the Environmental Committee at its January meeting, where we heard in great detail how their program works and how it benefits residents seeking to install solar power systems on their homes. I want to introduce your paper to me. Community Power Network has completed numerous projects throughout Maryland, DC, and Virginia, and now it hopes to have Chestertown be the first municipality on the eastern shore to join the program. The committee fully supports this program for Chestertown, and tonight is looking to Mayor and Council for the green light to proceed. I believe you should all have a copy of the list I sent out last week that spells out the most salient facts regarding the program. Anya and Corey will give a brief overview of the program and how it will benefit residents of Chestertown and the surrounding area, and then take any questions you might have. Okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you. You're on.
Thanks so much for having us. So my name is Anya Schoolman. I'm the Executive Director of Community Power Network. And Community Power Network operates nationally as a network of groups that do these kinds of projects all over the country. But we also operate locally, where we implement projects ourselves on the ground. And locally, we're known as Maryland Sun. We also have a DC Sun, and a Virginia Sun, and a West Virginia Sun. And this is Corey Ramsden. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, so I'm Corey Ramsden. I'm the program director for Maryland Sun, so I'm the one involved in the day-to-day activities of these co-ops all throughout the state.
So we wanted to talk quickly and just give you a quick overview so we would be available and have time for questions. We are a nonprofit. We are dedicated to the adoption and the equitable and affordable adoption of renewable energy with a local economic development component. That's what our mission is. We're not a company, we're not a for-profit, we're not a solar installation company. What we do is educate people about the process of going solar and then take them through the process in an orderly manner. And what we have developed, we have a lot of experience. We started in 2009. I actually started my own neighborhood in 2009 in Mount Pleasant. And since then, we've grown very organically, really by request, as communities have come to us and asked us to help them go through the process. We call it a solar co-op. And last year we did, or the last 18 months, we've done 19 different solar co-ops in the region. We take people through a process where first we do info sessions. It would be in a place like this, in the town hall or the library. It's open to the public. We usually spend about 2 hours and really explain to people what is the technology, what are the incentives, what's the process for going solar, how to understand it, how to understand the costs, all the ramifications. And then we solicit people to sign up with us as a group. When we get to a critical mass of people who have signed up, we issue a request for proposal on behalf of the group. So we do not have a marketing arrangement or work with any particular installer. We really work as advocates for the participants in the group. We issue an RFP, or a request for proposal, solicit bids, and that RFP is customized by the participants. So if the participants really care about getting a local company, they're gonna put that in the RFP. If they really care about price, they're gonna put that as the most important weight in the RFP. Once the bids are in, we analyze them. We do due diligence on the companies, we research, we call their references, we look at the equipment. We've gotten very good at knowing the market and really helping people wade through what's normally a very overwhelming decision or a very overwhelming process. But then we convene the members of the actual group in your community. They select the installer. It's the bid selection committee, and we help them through the process, but they're the ones that make that decision. Usually it's a subset of the people who really want to get involved. The other people are just figure it out for me and tell me, make this easier. And then some people are like, oh, I really want to learn more. I want to be involved. And so there's the beginning is sort of the education outreach. The middle is select the installer. And then the third section is really the installation. And at that point, there's a single company working with the group on behalf of the group. And then they come and make site visits to each of the participants' homes and give them a customized bid based on the proposal. So all the equipment and costs and everything are all the same for everyone. But they give them that bid, and then they have, once they get the customized bid after the site inspection, they have 30 days to sign up if they want to go solar. And it would really be Corey in this case, stick with people all the way through the process, answer questions, help them understand. And typically we would get, the whole process would take about 6 months from start to finish. And we would typically get somewhere between 10 and 40 homes going through the process. I'm going to let Corey talk a little bit about roles and responsibilities, and then we're going to let you guys ask questions.
Thank you.
Hi, so just going to dive into a little bit more about what we're typically looking for in a partner with this type of engagement. So we, as Anya said, we lead the group through the entire process, but for successful co-ops, we would like to have somebody who is ready to find a meeting spot for us. For example, in this case, that shouldn't be too difficult. Also promoting the group, so all of the resources that you would normally use to get the word out to your community in terms of radio or print ads, but that kind of thing. Putting us in touch with other community organizers in the area who might be interested. And we work with those folks to try to bring as many people to these information sessions as possible so they hear what the process is like and also have an opportunity to ask questions and know that there are other folks in the community who are also interested in doing this. It's one of the things that we find very useful for homeowners is to know that they're doing something like this as part of a group, and the information certainly feeds that and builds on that. Obviously, we would want anybody who's interested on the council, if you're welcome to come as well, but having a designated representative there to introduce the Maryland Sun Solar Co-op program with the city is really helpful. And of course, joining the group, if you decide you want to go solar, that's certainly, we would love to have you join as well. And on our end, our side of the equation throughout the process, we'll come and lead this information session. Typically, we're going to have 2. We'll have one before we do a request for proposals from installers. And then after that, we find it's really helpful to have another one for folks who want to join the group, but perhaps found out about it late, or really are looking more to just take advantage of a good deal and perhaps not do the selection committee or any of those parts of the process. And that's really helpful as well. So we tend to have a good response in both of those meetings with different folks who are interested in different parts of the engagement. So we'll do one after we've selected an installer, and we'll come and run those for the group. Supporting the bid selection itself is a critical part of what we do. We get lots of different bids from different installers, and they're a little, it's hard for homeowners to level those out and figure out which ones are which, so we help to do that by summarizing those bids for them. They get the bids themselves for folks who are on the selection committee, but we also provide some analysis of the equipment and some other things that help them be able to make that determination when the group gets together and works to select an installer. And then throughout the process, supporting them, checking in with the installers on a regular basis to make sure that the installer is providing pricing that meets the group bid, but also helping the installer to be able to overcome any issues, or maybe communicating out to the group to remind people to consider their proposals to just kind of keep the process moving. And then there's that kind of undercurrent of education that we do throughout the process from beginning to end, answering questions. When we do these co-ops, we'll typically get, you know, hundreds of questions from homeowners at different points of the process. Why does this proposal say this, or what do I do when I'm done installing to take advantage of my renewable energy credits? We've got lots of materials we've developed, but we also have that kind of personal interaction that we want to be able to offer to homeowners so that they know that there's somebody there with them during this process. And then a celebration at the end, which is our favorite part. So an opportunity for the town and for the residents to celebrate deploying a lot of renewable energy within the town as a group. And we'll be here to help with that as well. And at that, I think questions from any group?
I have to ask this, it's a nonprofit, I understand that, but you get your support from someplace. Where does that come from?
Great question. So 2 sources that support our work, pay for our time, pay for the equipment, et cetera. We have a grant from Town Creek Foundation to work with municipalities on the Eastern Shore, which is part of the reason why we're here pitching to you rather than waiting for you to ask us, because usually when we do this, it's by municipalities or community groups coming to us. But in this case, Town Creek has given us support to do up to 5 municipalities or groups on the Eastern Shore. We also get paid by the installers. Doesn't matter who we work with, so we're absolutely installer neutral. It's in the contract, and it's all, we discuss it in all the info sessions, so all the homeowners also know. We get a $500 fee per signed contract. So at the very end of the process, after 6 months of work, we get fees from the installers at $500 per house that they actually get the job on. And that's incorporated into their costs. And what we found, actually through a number of years of experimentation, is that we're saving the homeowners usually $2,000 to $4,000 by aggregating all the customers, and out of that, our 500 comes. So the homeowner's still having a very significant savings over what it would be if they did it on their own, because of the group process, like the bulk buy process. But that's how we get paid.
So that's the part I have questions about. In our own family on the Western Shore, our kids put in a solar array on their roof, and it didn't cost them 1 penny. It's more like the power purchase agreement arrangement that the town has negotiated for our large solar plant that we're about to start. So I'm curious about the costs of this, and why it should cost anyone anything to put a solar system on their roof.
So, great
That's
question.
my first question.
Yeah, so we work both with the power purchase agreement as well as a sale. And we don't, again, we're absolutely neutral. What we help people do is find what's the best deal for them. So what we have found, we're essentially consumer advocates, and that's how we see ourselves. And what we've found is that often people who sign those power purchase agreements don't understand the fine print. And I'm not saying this is at all the case in your family situation. Lots of time those contracts, for example, have a very aggressive escalator. So they're saying, oh, no money down, you just pay us for the solar. But they have an escalator that goes up faster than the cost of electricity. So in 10 years, they could be paying more. And at the end of the time, they don't own the system. So what we do is say, you have to figure out the right deal for you. We have no religion or on, this is the best way or that best way. We're exposed. What are the incentives? What are the real costs? What does the contract say? And then you tell us what you want, and we help you get it. And so if it turns out, as we have these discussions in the public info session, that a lot of the people prefer the no money down option, then that's in the RFP. And that's one of the options. Some people prefer to finance, some people want the power purchase agreement, some people want to pay for it out of a refi of their house. So it depends on your personal economics. And we help people really get it sort of to a deeper level of understanding those economics. And then we can help them make that decision. And even with the PPA, we would get the same fee. So it doesn't matter to us.
So The second part of my question is, for example, in my own case, I own a house, a historic house in the historic district of Chestertown, where the sunny side of the roof is visible to the street. And how is that gonna go down in Chestertown, where we're so tightly regulated by the Historic District Commission? I know, for example, the buildings where they are going in town, Sultana is going to be able to hide them, right, with the way the roof is designed, but for a lot of houses in town, that's not gonna be possible.
Yeah, I understand that. We've worked in many historic districts. In fact, the first group we did was in a historic district in DC, in Mount Pleasant. And we recently worked in the historic section of Hyattsville, Maryland. And our policy is to comply with the rules that are there. So we're not there to fight the historic commission. So one of the processes that we do, and Corey sort of glossed over it, is we screen the roofs. And one of the things is, the really hard part of our job is we're the ones that inform people like you, I'm really sorry, the sunny side of your roof is facing the front and that's not gonna be permitted. So you can't go solar. Now, if you decide you wanna go fight the historic commission or something like that, that's your decision, but that's not what we do. We help people comply with the local, whether it's the building codes, electric codes, historic, zoning, planning, we make it consistent with that, and we help them through that process. So it does mean that a lot of times people can't participate, and they get really disappointed. So sometimes we point them to community solar or other options that are emerging in Maryland, but that's how we handle that.
You say you don't have any connection directly, well, I guess you do, you get money from them, but have you vetted these installers? Because I read an article in the Sun paper a month or two ago where a lot of people got halfway through and the installer went, he went in the gutter and they couldn't finish and they were stuck with a bunch of stuff halfway put on their roof and not completed.
Yeah, that is, I think, one of the big things that we do bring to the process. We know the installers very well in this area, and when a new installer comes to the area, we get to know them. So we know them by experience. Like I said, we did 19 co-ops in the last 18 months, and I think there was only 2 repeats. So that was with 18 different companies we have a personal working relationship with. And Corey described how there's a weekly check-in call. So not only do we know them up front when they're selling the job, we know them every week in the process. Are they on time? Are they following up? Are they getting their permits? Are there complaints? What do the homeowners say? So we have personal experience, but we also do a lot of vetting, and that's part of what we bring to the selection process. We vet not only the installer and their experience, but also the equipment. So we'll check, okay, they say they're gonna use these panels. Most homeowners wouldn't know one panel from another, and we'll check what's the California Energy Commission rating for those panels, which, all the different components, and then we'll make sure that they're actually using the components that they say they are. So we think that that's really the value added as sort of customer advocates that we bring to the process, because solar's new. It's not like, it's scary getting your roof. If you own a house, it's scary getting a new roof too. But usually what you do is you go to a neighbor and you say, did you like that company that did your roof? And that you start to get a reputation, but you don't have that history with solar because it's so new. And so that's sort of customer confidence is one of the main things that we bring to the table, I think.
Are businesses able to join the co-op, or is this just
Absolutely.
residential?
Often businesses have sort of a different time frame and a different look, or there might be different interests in terms of financing. So if it's or if it's a different scale, like if it's really big, they're probably better off going on their own. But if it's like a mom and pop business, a small business in the neighborhood, maybe it's even on a house or a small building, they just fit right in.
Do you assess the condition of the roof before you put the panels on it, or the life expectancy of the roof?
So there's a couple phases of that. First, what we do is when the homeowner signs up, we ask them to describe both the age as well as what type of roof there is. And immediately if they say, it's 30 years old, we're gonna start talking to them about their roof probably not being in good condition for solar. The second thing is that Corey would be looking at the roofs remotely through Google Earth and other satellite imagery. And if there's any red flags, sometimes you could actually see, you know, roofs that are falling apart and stuff like that. So we do a preliminary screening based on those two things, and often it's through phone call or emails with the homeowner as well. Because a lot of homeowners are like, I have no idea, I've never been up there, and other ones are, I know exactly, you know, 12 years ago, this. So we go through that, but then when the installer is chosen later in the process, they actually make a site visit. So they're looking not only at the top of the roof, but the inside of the roof, at the rafters, structure, to make sure it's gonna pass all the permitting, weight requirements, etc. So there's a couple stages of that.
What's the geography of this? What's the geography of it?
Well, we think it's,
Is it Chestertown vicinity, Kent, Queen Anne's County? What is the
I think
geography
it's Kent and Queen
of this
Anne's,
co-op?
right?
Of this co-op?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it
where
would
the-
be, the center would be Chestertown, so we'd probably hold the meetings here. We'd probably make it open to Kent and Queen Anne's.
So it's regional.
So it would be regional, so that you could get the critical mass you need to get the discounts and stuff. Especially because you have the issues like the historic downtown and things like that.
What is that critical mass, would you say?
What we usually, and it can be customized, you need to have a good sense by the time you issue the RFP, so that you can signal to the installers that are bidding what to expect. But a typical one, we would expect 20 houses to go solar, and that would mean that we would probably need 40 to 60 people to sign up with interest, because we're gonna be screening roofs, and some people are gonna decide to go with a different process, like, you know, thank you for teaching me about solar, but I'm gonna go and work with a different company, and some people decide they don't have the money, etc. So that would be typical. Sometimes we get, you know, bigger ones, sometimes a little smaller, but that's, you know, that's kind of where the minimum is usually not that size. Any more questions?
The SRECs, they vary so much with each firm, and whether the firm takes the SRECs or the individual, you'll allow that whichever way it goes?
Yeah, in fact, that's one of the other things we do to protect the customers, is we really insist upon transparency and options with managing the SRECs, the solar renewable energy certificates, which are worth, you know, fairly significant amount of money. Some companies push hard, they're like, no, they have to do it with us or whatever, and so what we make sure is that there's really a transparent process, that people know, you know, what the options are. And we don't have any stake one way or the other. We have really detailed info sheet, and we spend a lot of time sort of taking people through that decision.
Something about the economics in this paper doesn't quite add up to me. You say the retail price would be about $12,000 for a rooftop system, and that would save a homeowner about $465 a year for 20 years. That's only $9,300. Now then you take what it would cost with the co-op, about $4,300. So over 20 years you can basically get double your money back, a little bit more. People who have to finance might need to look at that pretty carefully.
Yeah, well, the thing about that number, is it $465, is that what it
That's
says,
what
in
it
terms
says.
of that's the annual
Annual
electricity
saving,
savings?
yeah.
So that's really the first year's electricity savings. So each year, your system is gonna be producing roughly the same amount of electricity, a little bit less over time, because it degrades.
It does.
But the price of electricity goes up each year. So that same amount of electricity might be worth $465 this year, when we get another rate increase, and then that same amount of electricity might be worth $500 the year after, or $520 the year after. So while it looks like maybe an 8-year payback, it's actually less, but depending on how fast electricity goes up. So that's one of the things we spend a lot of time with, explaining people. And that's why I said we don't have one economic answer. It really depends on your personal situation, whether you want to finance it, get a PPA, or other options.
It does get complex for a homeowner, so it's good to have that sort of nonprofit assistance.
Yeah, there's two things that I think we really help with. One is the information, and then the other is the timeline, because for most homeowners, they're too busy. They've got, jobs, kids, dogs, household chores. And so by creating a structure, a beginning, a middle, and end, and deadlines, and a group effort, it really gets people to make the decision. And it makes it fun for people, it takes the stress out of it.
So how do people join the co-op? So if you have your first initial meeting, you submit the RFP, and then people
We
sign up.
create a website, you put your name in, you sign, give us the information, that's
So
how
you
you
get
join.
the benefits that were already negotiated, or do you have like a second round?
No, it's the same group, same price. And there's, like I said, there's a beginning, a middle, end, and as long as you sign up before the deadline for signing up, which is a month or so after the company is chosen, you get the same price.
I see. And if you come in after that deadline, after everything has been installed initially, I mean,
Then it's done.
then it's done.
And we may come back, if you guys love it, and you invite us back next year or 2 years from now, we might do it again.
Mhm.
But you have to have a real deadline, otherwise people will be like, oh, maybe I'll do it another time.
What's the minimum square foot on the roof that you need?
Excuse me, it depends a little bit on the equipment size, which changes over time, but it's, for a small but viable system, it's gonna be somewhere between 200 and 220 square feet, roughly. And that can be in different sections of your roof, it doesn't have to be contiguous.
So, I mean, from where I'm standing, this doesn't cost us any money, we're not contractually obligated to anything, it's essentially them coming to us saying, we're willing to provide this service to your residents, and if nobody's interested, that's the end of the story, but if people are interested, we help out basically by providing a meeting space and helping with promotion, which I'm sure the environmental committee would love to help with, and to me, I don't see a real downside.
I would like to see us have references from some of the communities they've worked with, and how it went for people in those communities. Before
Is that
we-
something that you guys could
Sure.
provide?
Yeah.
I mean, I
let's
think,
do it.
I think we should get them. I think we should ask
Oh,
them for
okay.
a list of contacts, and I think we should get them. Because if we're gonna put it out there as something that we've endorsed, I'd like to know more about experiences of other communities.
Okay.
Briggs, are there any other things that you would use this group for, or is this just individual homes?
No, just residences.
Briggs, how many buildings did the college go in solar with?
What's that?
How many buildings does the college went solar with?
Not many. Not much roof space.
Well, I think this is a terrific idea, and I think that if it ever comes to fruition in town, the reason I asked about the geography of it, because I would think that it would be a windfall for the town that we wouldn't want for the building permit fees for solar installation. So I would recommend if this gets going, that the town waive the building permit fee, not the inspection fee, but the building permit fee for solar applications inside the town limits.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's an incentive that, because some people think of it as incredible pain. Can't help with the historic commission, but the rest of it we can, and I think that would be just a little impetus, that once you got all these other things, would,
It would help build the excitement, I think,
yeah, would help a
Yeah.
lot.
And if
That's
it's
a
helpful,
great idea.
if it's helpful from a technical side, we do have, between myself and other folks who are in the industry that we work with, we can certainly help with the permit review, like technical help, if you have folks
We
in the
require
inspection
the
office that
mounting and
want-
the wind and snow loads, but that's pretty much the same for a lot of them.
Yeah,
But we've been sitting here going, what's the fee for this? And we've set a low fee, because we want to encourage it. But I think if we have this sort of a co-op, that's something the town could consider offering.
So I think tonight what we could do is endorse this conceptually predicated on getting some positive
Positive
feedback from other communities. So maybe, could you maybe call them and have them give you the name of?
Yeah, I've
free
read
town?
about them, before in some of Briggs's, on his website, I think, haven't I, Briggs? Didn't there-
have their own.
You
Maryland
sent
site.
you sent an email with reference to them, and I'll look them
I'll
up.
send you, should I just send it to you? We'll send it to Briggs.
All right, you send it to
City
Briggs,
College
Briggs, you
Park.
send it to us, we'll vet a couple references, and I think what we can do is, if the references check out, which I'm confident they will, that we can formally endorse this and move ahead maybe at our next meeting.
Wonderful.
All right?
So, thanks
Exciting.
a lot for the
Yeah.
opportunity to
Thank
present.
you.
Yeah.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
see you all again.
Very intriguing.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So I've been told told that, are both item 4 and 6 gonna be struck?
Yeah. It's the same.
Oh, sorry, I gave you a new one, that's the other one, yeah, 4 and 6, yeah.
So, Chief Baker was unable to make it tonight, which means the next item on our agenda is the Washington College Enactus presentation. So with her.
Yeah, he's not the only one. He didn't, he said it's just worse.
No,
Did they say I needed soap? Yes.
Avocado, beer, coffee, fruits, and honey.
That's okay.
Just the basic part, so. Good choice.
Avocado, beer, coffee, fruits, and honey, and both classes.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
We have avocado, beer, coffee, fruits, and honey, and
Similar sort of. What's this?
Doesn't happen a lot. The joke is on you. So we are from Washington College, part of Washington College Enactus. And Washington College Enactus is a student organization on campus that is dedicated to using entrepreneurship in the local communities to attack environmental, social, and economical issues. So our club is an organization of students, academic advisors, and business leaders. We have partner companies that we are able to consult with and work with. We have a business advisory board formed by local members, including Mr. Shoga, who invited us here tonight to present to you about this project. So Washington College Enactus currently is running 3 projects and about to start a 4th one for the spring semester. Our 3 projects are Shore Marketing, which is dedicated to helping local businesses run their marketing efforts, do advertising, and also local community organizations advertise themselves to the communities. Our next project would be Sprout to Action, which is currently running kids camps in Garnett Elementary School and plan to expand to other local elementary schools. That project is sponsored by Unilever's Healthy Living Grant, and it sponsors nutrition, healthy living, and healthy lifestyles for young elementary students. And then our next project would be Soap to Hope, which I'm going to let my teammates present here tonight. And in a second here, I'll turn it over to them. And our 4th project that we're starting up is called Project Garden Box, which runs through the food pantry, where we supply garden boxes with vegetable plants potted in them to local community members at free of charge. So I'm going to turn it over to them. We'll keep it informal. You guys can ask questions as they go and give them the barrage. So we'll let them get started here.
Once again, thank you for giving us the chance to present in front of you. The project that we're presenting today is called Soap with Hope, and we started this project in our fall semester, so sometime around August of last year. And we had 10 active participants working on the project through last semester, and we're recruiting more and more people through spring semester.
And our members are doing 2 things. We're making the soap ourselves,
and we're selling soap.
and our production first started in the chemistry labs with the supervision of the chemistry department. But as we became more aware of how to make soap and just learning the basics of how to make it, we moved it to Brent's dorm room because the chemistry labs weren't always going to be available. So in these dorm rooms, we have developed a very efficient 3-man system, which has consistently made 3 batches of soap in 3 hours, which is a lot more efficient than the chemistry labs.
How much is in a batch?
About
We had 30 bars of soap in a batch.
so we made 11 total batches.
So you've got 330 bars.
As of now, that's what.
Yeah, roughly. But we're still looking.
Shark Tank, you just gotta grill them on the
This
numbers.
is Shark Tank.
Let's not start asking about capital and stuff. Dust. No.
But we're still looking to make the process more efficient and just develop a home base to make the soap so we can make it whenever.
So in the past, past, we've sold soap through a flash sale on the campus green during the fall, and in the 3 hours that we had the sale, we made $250. In the future, we hope to use this as a model to sell soap more on campus as well as at the local farmers market.
We're beginning to contact local stores in the Chestertown area to see if they want to buy our soap and sell to the customers.
And we're also planning to set up a website for our soap, so that we have like a direct connection with our customers, and we get to sell it to them through the website. Now you might find yourself asking why we do all this.
That was gonna be my next question.
Our main mission out of our project is to raise funds and use all the profits that we make towards global sanitation efforts.
And we want to just expand locally and globally for sanitation purposes, and provide our soap to the military, overseas, and developing countries that need it, and even local homeless shelters. Just get the soap out to as many people that need it as possible.
The third part of our mission is to create jobs through establishing a soap-making business in the developing world. In countries where soap is considered a luxury, not only will this provide them with sanitation, but it will also create jobs for the locals. Currently, our target country is Haiti.
We basically just need to legitimize this project a little more. We need to register our name and trademark, and sort of find a home base where we can make the soap whenever, and store it, and just make it more accessible, and just use it whenever we can.
And we're also currently working with an organization that travels to Haiti. We're hoping that they can provide us with guidance as to where exactly to establish the soap-making business in Haiti, and also will aid us in following up with the business in the future.
And we also want to establish strong relationships with local stores in Chestertown, so that we have a steady stream of revenue and we don't have to rely on flash sales for our profits.
And these are our 5 bars of soap.
So Oats and Honey is our best-selling soap. It's a great for sensitive skin because the honey actually attracts moisture to your skin, and you also get the benefits of things like an oatmeal bath through using the soap. So people see good anti-inflammatory, great for sensitive skin, and my grandma always complains about having sensitive skin, and she absolutely loves the Oats and Honey bar. So it's a great bar of soap that has a naturally sweet smell without having any added fragrances and all natural ingredients.
Our next bar of soap is the coffee soap. It's an unscented bar, so you can't smell it, as it doesn't smell like coffee. But I've used it myself, and what I've noticed is that it's a good deodorant. So if you work in the kitchen or your hands are greasy and you use the soap, it actually removes the smells very well.
Our third bar of soap is an avocado soap. It has all the moisturizing benefits of avocado. It's also a great facial bar because of the antioxidants that it has in it. When you use it, it has a nice creamy lather, which I know some people like, and it's also unscented, like the coffee bar.
Beer soap, which is our most interesting soap, is made with
I didn't
insect.
see that
They
one.
make it on weekends.
I'll trade my coffee.
You can trade.
It's made with Guinness Extra Stout. It's rich with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. It's great for body, hair, and even shaving. I've used it myself. And not for shaving, but.
But it's not unscented, so you could smell it.
And it's naturally scented.
When you get pulled over, you say, I just got out of it.
So the classic bar is just a basic old-fashioned bar of soap. It's good for cleaning and just having the basic benefits of having an all-natural homemade bar of soap. So those are all of the challenges that we're facing, what we're looking for, and we're really here looking for a better relationship with the town, not only for our project Soap with Hope, but for our Enactus team as a whole. And with Enactus, we're really looking for being able to, hopefully here in the near future, go pitch this to the Downtown Chestertown Association and have local businesses be able to pick it up. And we're also planning on working with a nonprofit organization locally who will be able to provide some employment to some local people in need who will produce the soap for us. So those are some of the things that we're doing.
How much does it cost you to make a bar of soap, and then how much do you sell?
Well, we're planning to wholesale it with about a 40% margin below the retail prices of it. Our actual margins, we're kind of keeping a little bit more quiet right now, but I can talk to you afterwards. So at the flash sale, the prices you were seeing on the screen, the $5 for all of our bars, they were there on the bottom left, but it's $5 for all the basic bars, and the classic soap's just a $3 bar of soap. So the actual price point's a little bit under what a lot of the homemade soaps are in town. You're not seeing all of the fancy designs in our soaps or anything like that. You're just getting a basic bar of soap that you want all natural soap, you want the benefits of having homemade soap. It's not scented, but we don't have fragrances which would irritate the skin, but then again, we don't have the essential oils which are a natural way of scenting them. But we are looking at scenting some of our bars with essential oils just to provide that benefit to people who are interested in having a nice, smelly, perfumed type bar.
I liked your answer. That's a good business person. And I'm going to the Artisans first meeting of the year on February 22nd. If you would like me to take any information to get you into the farmer's market,
Yeah,
it's on my ward. And then I'm also on the Tea Party Committee for the Artisans, which is Memorial Day weekend, and I can get you an application for that.
yeah, we're also working on campus with a couple of different people, including Mr. Shoge, and Joe Holt actually mentioned
Joe,
the,
and I, well,
the
he's
Tea
not
Party,
into
so-
the Artisans,
yeah, so
we're
we
doing
talked to
that
him a little
together.
bit about that.
Yeah.
And Mr. Shoge also provided me with the information for getting into the farmer's market, and we are college students, it's very difficult to convince us to go out there in the freezing cold, no matter how good the cause is. So, we're hoping, you know, here at end of February, once temperatures start warming up just a little bit, we're gonna
Well,
attack the
I
farmer's market.
think, well, we have two parts to the market. We have the farmers and the artisans, and the artisan market starts, March 21st.
Perfect, yeah, that's a great timeline for us.
Are you,
So,
are you guys, what grade level are you, like seniors, juniors?
I'm a junior and they're all freshmen.
All right, so
so-
we got time
4
right.
years.
Yes, yes, it's a very freshman-heavy project, that was something that we just created new this year for the new members that we got to work on.
So you guys are just gonna be cranking out soap for the next 3.5 years.
Well, hopefully they're not cranking it out, hopefully it's local people that we're employing that will be cranking
That would
out
be
soap
even
for
better.
us. And at that point,
You
we'll
can
be
get out of
able
your
to-
dorm room? I mean, are these people gonna be working in your dorm?
Well, no, we'll be able to work hopefully at that nonprofit location. We have one in mind, but we're working on proposing to them right now.
Great.
Upstairs is that?
He has a place already.
I knew you were gonna say
He has a place already.
So yeah, I wanted to bring these guys forward just so, it's always important to have an understanding and idea of what the students are working on campus. You meet with a lot of people who have been here their entire life and they've never set foot on Washington College. They just drive past it every day on Washington Avenue. So when you have students here in front of you who are showing you what they're consistently working on day in and day out, it gives you an idea of what exactly it is that those students are actually doing. So I think it's definitely a good project. It certainly is going towards a good cause, global sanitation. It's a very ambitious task, but I think they've certainly proven that they're up for it. And some of the other projects that they're working on, keep in mind, this is just one of the many projects that Enactus is actively working on. So it's a great group of students, and I think they're definitely going to make a very local impact, which is great.
Yep, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, yeah,
We'll-
that's great.
Thank you very much.
All of our project manager contact information are on there for the other projects if you're interested in reaching out to any of them. And thanks for taking the time. I'll let you trade out if you want a beer, so. There you go.
I like coffee, but I really like beer.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, I've been kind of giving everyone a heads up about this, is a discussion about the I-sign, the history of the I-sign, and hopefully decisions about the future of the I-sign. Before I just kind of jump into this, I just want to point out that regardless of whatever is decided here, I think the sign was installed with definitely great intentions. A lot of people have put a lot of time, money and effort into the sign. And I guess to try to summarize kind of what the point of putting the I sign is, what was the goal? I think it had multiple purposes based on notes that I read from previous council these. I think first and foremost, we were looking for a more modern kind of upgrade to the 2D map that we have on the wall of the Boardsley building at the corner of Cross and High. The sign had the capability of advertising all of our local businesses, some of whom purchased ads on the sign. I know Washington College was a big player in purchasing ad space. The sign was designed in part to help people find their way from the corner to other businesses. It was also going to be used to promote community events, to promote the college, and I think importantly, it was kind of an experiment with interactive sign technology, which we had never tried before, especially downtown. I, in the last 3 weeks, have talked to just about everybody that was or still is involved with the history of this sign. And I did email this to you guys, but I'm going to hand this out and just quickly go over it. Kind of have a timeline here. So just looking at the timeline of the iSign, the concept was sort of first brought to the community by a gentleman who had founded a company called iSign Logic. He approached the Downtown Chestertown Association. I believe also the town of Chestertown. The idea was we're going to try to get this sign up like Tea Party and help advertise the event and the businesses. Shortly after that presentation in April, the membership of DCA unanimously endorsed the sign, and then they went about the process of going to different organizations to get the sign approved and installed, which did include, on September 21st of 2010, a presentation to the mayor and council. The council unanimously endorsed the sign, and the town was involved with an in-kind contribution to install the sign. In other words, we donated some of the town's street crew members to install the sign. So with sort of the agreement with the town in mind, the next step was to fund the sign. DCA worked really closely with Bernadette Bowman at the Kent County Department of Tourism. They applied for and received a grant from the Maryland Scenic Byways Program. The notes that I found indicate the grant amount was $15,385, and the town's in-kind match amounted to about $3,500 for time and materials to install it. And it's kind of interesting to note that the grant was given to the town technically, but it was always understood that when the money was, if the money was successfully received by the town, it was what we call a pass-through grant. So the money was obtained by the town and then given to DCA so they could go forward with the purchase. And correct me if I'm wrong with any of this history. Other efforts that were made on March 2nd, 2011, the Historic Commission approved the design of the kiosk that you see on the street right now. A contract was signed with iSign Logic by the town and DCA to move forward and get the device up and operational. The HDC approved the location of the sign in June of 2011, and shortly thereafter, in June of 2011, the sign was installed. So the sign has been sitting there now. So you got 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 3.5 years. If you recall, for those of us that were around, it was really that first summer where when the heat got kind of intense and there was direct sunlight at that location without any sort of shade tarp, that problems started to arise periodically. One of the issues was that initially the idea was that the sign would tap into the town's Wi-Fi, and for whatever reason, I'm still not totally clear on why, but it just wasn't a great connection, so that when people would touch a button that relied on internet connectivity, they would have like a 15-20 second delay, and that doesn't take long before you kind of lose that person's interest and they would move on. Ultimately, they wired a landline connection into the Boardsley Center, which ameliorated that problem significantly. There were also issues with just glare on the screen, so that the screen was sometimes very difficult to read, even though it might have been functioning well, especially at the height of the sun. There were fogging issues where the heat and the humidity just created a situation where there was fogging and condensation inside the screen. And then there were just issues with the screen itself where sometimes the buttons weren't as sensitive as maybe they could have been or should have been. There were several efforts made to deal with these issues. Among them, if you recall, there was a 10 by 10 tent erected over the sign. I think Bob Ramsey was part of that effort, just to see, hey, if we got this thing in the shade, would that make the difference? And it did have some positive effect on eliminating the fogging and also the glare, but we did have a 10 by 10 tent sitting over a sign at a very busy corner, and it wasn't particularly attractive. Long and short of it is, in March of 2013, the contract with the provider that had all the software, iSignLogic, was terminated. The provider subsequently removed his proprietary software out of the machine, and it's basically sat with a blank screen since approximately that time. So now we're at February of 2014, so it's been 2015, thank you. It's basically been about 2 years that the sign has been sitting there with a blank screen. So why did I feel like I needed to get involved? Basically, it seemed like nobody was really gonna make any decisions quickly, so a lot of people have been complaining to me about the sign, and if that's gonna be the case, I feel compelled to take action and tell our citizens what's gonna happen. The other thing, we get to, all right, if we wanted to reboot the sign, it pretty quickly gets into a monetary decision. One thing that's happened since the sign has been inoperational is that some of the members within DCA looked into other companies that provide the software you need for these signs to function. After reviewing many companies, the company that they identified was a company called Four Winds Interactive. It's a nationwide company that does nothing but iSigns. They've got hundreds of these all over the country. The estimate for installation, there's a one-time installation fee that gets you the software, the hardware, and their expertise at installing signs. According to the estimate that I was given, there's a one-time startup fee of $3,205.09. And then just like anything else, like a website, you need maintenance on the sign. So after that, there would be annual recurring maintenance fees of $1,348.92. The bottom line is I met with the current DC officers. I think most of them are sitting in this room. And what they said was, hey, look, you know, that our annual dues are barely cover that, and we can't afford, if we're the only entity that's gonna be responsible for getting the sign restarted, that's too much for us to cover by ourselves. So the bottom line is, if we decide that it's a worthy effort to get that sign rebooted, it's gonna take a partnership of some kind where those fees are divided amongst 2 or 3 entities. And those, I also talked with Bernadette Bowman at the Kent County Department of Tourism. I think it's fair to say she's still a pretty strong advocate for the sign. And I asked her point blank, look, you know, if we're gonna have taxpayer money involved, I need to know, is the county gonna be able or willing to help defray these costs if the council thinks it's a good idea to spend the money? And she thinks that it would be. So I put it down here, it's possible, and of course nothing has been finalized because we haven't had a discussion yet, that there may be the possibility of a 3-way partnership between the town of Chestertown, DCA, and the Kent County Department of Tourism, if we decide that we think it would be a good idea to get the sign reinstalled, that we could defray the cost somewhat. So I'm just putting that out there. Everybody pretty much agreed amongst the current officers that that location is just problematic. The only way that we really see that spot working with that sign is if we were to build some sort of shade structure. And to me personally, I've never liked that idea because it's already kind of big enough without its own shade mechanism, and that would cost additional money. It should also be noted that if we do get this sign back up and running, it's kind of important, just like with a website, that you have somebody, a point person that is consistently in charge of getting the programming back up to where we would like to be, and then stays on top of it and keeps it current. So if a business goes under and somebody else comes in, that those changes are noted, and that takes time and staffing. Lastly, if we decide that we're intrigued by the possibility of this other provider, it was offered that DCA, some of the members were interested in maybe having Four Winds Interactive come and give us a presentation about what the sign could be capable of if they were involved. Because a point they made, which is a good one, is how can you say we're not interested in Four Winds if you don't know what the capabilities are that they could bring to the table? So that's an idea that's out there. But the bottom line for me is, I'm somewhat impartial, but something's gotta give, because I'm not gonna be happy walking past a blank sign for another year. So the way I see it, if we want to explore the possibility of collaborating with DCA and the Kent County Tourism, we need to decide if we were to save the sign, where would it be moved to? Because we all agree that location isn't ideal. We need to figure out who maintains the programming, who's that point person. And then obviously we need to have very solid financial arrangements, not just for getting it back up, but what does it look like in year 2, in year 3, in year 4? If we decide that we as a group aren't in favor of keeping the sign or making the effort or spending the money to resurrect it, then we need to talk about, okay, if we're not interested in keeping that sign, what happens? Does it just get removed? I think technically it's owned by DCA, so would we remove it and then give it to DCA and then they'd be in charge of storing it somewhere? If so, could we help with that? And it's still kind of it's a usable device. I don't know if it's a usable device that we all like, but somebody could use it and maybe we can be of assistance in helping DCA or the county decide who or why or how it could get used in the future. So that's all out on the table. I've told you guys I would love to hear your feedback.
You got my email.
Yes, but I'd love to hear this.
I read your history here. I will say this, nobody came in here and told us where they were gonna put that sign. The location was.
Because that was more of an HDC
Right,
decision.
that was their decision. I firmly believe it belongs in the visitor center for lots of reasons. One thing is it's protected, it's shady. You can have the person who works over there at least check to make sure it's working every day. And a few times I tried to use it, I never could, because I'll admit that I'm a little.
But you're a good test case though. Like, cause it needs to work for somebody like.
At all, and then it just finally went blank before I ever got it to work. But I don't, there's this question of, well, people don't go to the visitor center. Well, if they don't go to the visitor center, they're probably not really true visitors to Chestertown. They're people who wanted to go someplace in the first place. And that sign on Bordley's up there, the great big sign is up there. I kind of like that sign. It's kind of historical looking, and that's what we're trying to create in our downtown. And this kind of fits out of space, like almost like a billboard. And I do like the partnership. I don't think we should carry the load. I don't think DCA should carry the load. Maybe the county should carry the load because they're going to be putting a lot of advertising in there. But, and you know, we could throw another one in there. Washington College gets some benefit out of it too. So, but it needs to be a split cost. I don't think the town should end up paying the whole fee unless we end up taking it down. And that's the only people who's probably going to take it down is us if it needs to be. That's my 2 cents for this whole thing. But I still like, I said it when they brought in here, the visitor center seems to be a logical place for me.
I'm not arguing, I'm just gonna tell you the flip side. One of the arguments was that, well, if it's in the visitor center, then you can't get to it, and you can only get to it when the center's open. So what if someone wants to use it at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock? So that was the thinking about why people wanted it to be outside.
But what about outside the visitor center?
Well, that's another possibility. But let's just go around. I just want to get general.
Most people who visit don't come at 10 o'clock at night.
I agree with that too.
On a screen trying to find out where they're at or something. Somebody said, well, New York City, I was talking to Bill about it. Well, people in New York City need something. I mean, you can't find anything. But
we're a little smaller.
Pretty clear.
All right, Sam.
What was the sign, what was it supposed to do when it was installed?
Supposed to help advertise our businesses, help people find their way to those businesses. The idea was that you could post, notices about special events. It was interactive, which I think was attractive. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but I think those were.
Same thing your iPhone does right now.
So, I mean, essentially, it's.
Every 8-year-old kid or above has an iPhone.
I mean, I feel as if it's been replaced by the website. I mean, everything that you just said were main priorities that we wanted to accomplish with the website that can be accessed anywhere from multiple devices. And most people are typically coming prepared to a place that they're visiting with some type of mobile device where they can interact with these things. So, quite honestly, I mean, the functionality that you get from that huge thing can all be done from an iPad or from your iPhone or your Android device. I mean, it's big, it's clunky, and the actual time that it worked was how many months? 3 months? 2 months?
It wasn't a lot for the amount of money.
So, I personally, especially with this one-time installation fee that I see here, I would rather put that money into, what Marty said, a more appropriate location would be the visitor center. I personally would like to see that money reinvested into, things that will be some type of better medium. Maybe touchscreen TVs, that can do exactly everything that the iSign can do, except much smaller. We can control exactly what goes on there. We can put iPads in the visitor center. We can do a lot of things for even just the annual fee that we would have to pay for maintaining the iSign. So I personally think the iSign's time has come.
It's going, you mean?
Or is gone.
It's time is
So,
going.
can I ask Sam a question?
Sure.
So you could have a screen in the visitor center that essentially would just for our website, and people could find a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah, I mean, we could even make them apps. So, you press a button and up comes the event calendar. You
Yeah.
press a button, up comes a list of the businesses. I mean, you can do a lot of really creative things for something that doesn't come close to the overall figure or storing the iSign.
So what I'm hearing you say is you think the technology is a little outdated and we could better allocate that amount of money for other more current technologies, in your opinion? Okay, Linda.
Okay, number one, the sign itself has taken a bad rap, just because, it's not that it doesn't work, it was because of the contract.
Well, that's definitely a side that's out there. Now, I think if you talk to him, he would have a different story, but,
Well, anyway.
well, I hear what you're
I
saying.
just, it kinda takes a bad rap. Anyway, is there an obligation to the byways grant to continue this project?
That's an interesting question as well, and I don't know the answer to that.
And, if you move it to the visitor center, when the visitor center's closed, you can't access it. If you move it to the visitor center, outside, there's a cost of moving it.
Yep.
Those were, and then, I don't know if I should bring this up or not, but, in your discussions, have you heard anything about a lawsuit against the sign?
I absolutely have, and I have to tell you, if somebody were to push that, I do believe that that sign, technically, by the letter of our ordinance, would be illegal. And I can tell you as a former planning commission member, that when the Garfield was pushing for their electronic sign, it's made it really difficult for me as the chairman of the planning commission to say, it's clearly illegal what you're asking me to approve for you. And they could rightfully say, well, there's this giant electronic sign on that corner. And so that, to me, is another argument for putting it inside, because it kind of eliminates that whole potential issue.
I want to bring up, you just don't have people coming 10 o'clock at night looking for historic sites or whatever it may be. Might be looking for a bar, but you can find a bar.
Well, could you not put it in a lobby, like, you know, a lot of banks have their ATMs?
What about the breezeway that at the, at 315
Well,
High Street?
we had talked about that too, when I talked to some people about it. Instead of it being perpendicular to the sides, if it's parallel, it wouldn't obstruct. But, is that private property?
Yes, I had a conversation with some artisans that rent space in the breezeway that I know very well, and they were pretty confident, yes, that is private property, and they felt pretty strongly that that property owner wouldn't be really excited to break the bricks in the sidewalk to put the sign in there. Now, I didn't follow that up, but that, I don't know, you probably know the person.
Alexander. Yeah.
Well, Liz.
Well, I think we pretty much covered some of the issues I was going to raise. I'm just curious in this historical document, I don't know if everybody else, you gave this to me, did everybody get it?
No, she just told me to give it to you.
Oh, okay. It looks like that their original proposal was for a much, much more attractive housing, a wrought iron, you know, with a little sloping top and a little decorative ball and trim and sort of a decorative sides on it. And I wonder why that never happened. Does anybody know?
It was originally supposed to go to the other side of the street in the,
Right, I think.
where the sun wouldn't hit it till late in the day and did it all. But the bank had not agreed to that, and I think when they asked them, they said, well, no.
This is what it was supposed to look like, apparently.
Well, these were suggestions in the booklet.
Okay, well, anyway, see that as it may, the sign is what we've got. And, I don't think I have anything really further to add to the discussion.
I mean, ultimately, this sign is catering towards visitors. And, you know, if we want to spend our money the most effective way possible, I think it's you put it in the visitor center. Not the sign itself, I'm talking about the money that we would use to refurbish the sign. Because that center is used, and I mean, we hear the numbers of the amount of visitors who are checking in every single month, and it's actually pretty high, you know. So I feel as if we're going to be spending $4,500, let's make the visitor center as interactive and as engaging as possible. But that does not include allocating it towards an iSign.
So,
You will get a tremendously big TV.
You get a very large TV.
Right, very large.
and if it were linked directly to the website, we wouldn't be doubling the effort of
Right.
having somebody else keeping the information for the sign up, when we're already doing that for this.
Exactly. And I mean, we can't put the sign in the visitor center. I mean, it's a good space, but it's not that big, and the sign is a monstrosity. So it would really, I would think, take up a lot of space, wouldn't you say?
It's a big sign.
Yeah, so-
I don't know exactly how big it is.
Well, the only place I see.
I'm gonna let Barbara, I know Barbara's been involved with this from the beginning, and I'm sure she would like to add.
I'd just like to add a couple things. I'm Barbara Jorgensen. I'm Vice President of the Downtown Chestertown Association. And for what it's worth, I've been involved with the sign since it was just a concept. First of all, Sam Shoge just said, what we need are touchscreen TVs. Well, that's exactly what this sign is. It's simply, it has several simple components. It has a small hard drive with, you put software in that, and that software is displayed on a big LED screen. That's all that thing is. It's a hard drive and an LED screen and some software. It's housed in this kiosk, which I believe the design, Liz Gross, I believe it was changed because of some requirements from the Historic District Commission, if my memory serves me.
Less historic.
Right. But the kiosk itself really isn't the issue. The issue is, what is the device? And the device is exactly what Sam just described, except it's bigger. It's bigger. And it's also very specifically designed to, after you get the visitor here, it's directing the visitor where we want the visitor to go. We have some control over that by the way that the software works and the information that we load onto it. So it's not like when I go to DC and I want to eat lunch somewhere and I plug in restaurants and it gives me a list of restaurants on H Street. It's not like that. It's much more directed. It speaks to the visitor in a way that we have control over. I'm really sorry that Bernadette Bowman can't be here tonight because Bernadette is particularly interested in maintaining the sign and having the sign be used as a jumping off place. You start here in Chestertown and then you jump over to Galena and then you jump over to Rock Hall and other places. All of those things can be, all of those other sites can be connected to this thing that we're calling the iSign. It's really a digital information kiosk. What it's really designed to be is a digital bulletin board. Right now, if you go to the visitor center, there's a rack. There's racks and racks and racks of printed brochures. If you go to the Bordley History Center, there's a big rack with brochures. Well, these brochures are going to be on an electronic device instead, and they can be automatically downloaded. And so people who use their smartphones in a way I don't use mine, simply download that and walk around. It could guide you to where you want to go. It could guide you to the new river arts. You scan it, and it literally says, walk 100 feet and turn left. Walk another 200 feet and turn left again. It can do that. That's not what you can get from Google Maps or anything else.
Did it ever do that?
It didn't have no,
I never saw it do, but
well, you said you never saw it do anything though, with all due respect. So, you know, and I
never heard anybody else say it did it either. So.
Well, that's called the Wayfinder function. And the Wayfinder function is specifically something that is part of this software from Four Winds. And by the way, Four Winds doesn't have a few thousand of these. It has over 100,000 of these signs in action right now in over 20 countries around the world. So this isn't passé. This isn't yesterday's technology. This is today's technology. And I'm the first one to admit that the location is not the perfect location. But don't throw away the baby simply because we put it in the wrong place. And Bill very well articulated what happened. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be there. It was supposed to be across the street in a shaded location. And the bank, for whatever reason, said, we don't want it on our property. I don't know why that happened, but it happened. So then it was, okay, where are we going to put it? And the town said, well, you can put it right across the street. Speaking of Bill's idea about the breezeway, it can be put on the sidewalk in front of the breezeway. It doesn't have to be in Mr. Alexander's private property. It can be right at the front of the breezeway where people can see it. One of the great values of having this sign downtown is that it shows people around downtown when they get there.
So when someone comes to the visitor center, we give them a brochure telling them where to go down and find your sign?
No.
Go to the visitor center.
They come down, they get a brochure if they stop there. Another hat that I wear around this community is I do a lot of work with the Bordley History Center. In fact, I'm kind of in charge of the shop they have there, which has become the de facto visitor center on the weekends when it's open. We answer more questions about what's where in downtown Chestertown. I mean, we answer more questions than we sell stuff, I'll tell you. So, and we like that. I'm not complaining, I'm observing, and I'm proudly observing that people who come to Chestertown, they want to know where's the best place to eat, where can I buy a dress, where can I buy a souvenir, where can I buy some books. You know, can I buy a hat? It's raining. Is there somewhere I can buy a hat? Where can I get an umbrella? We answer all those questions. And if we had a sign downtown, the sign would be smart enough to answer those questions. Because the sign is the information you put in it, and we have the ability to put whatever kind of information we want in it.
Ultimately, I think something that we really have to make clear is that we are working with a third party. That third party being Four Winds Interactive. They may have 100,000 signs in 20 different countries, but ultimately we're still working with somebody else, with some other institution.
It's somebody else's software, that's exactly
Right.
right.
But, and you know, you mentioned how simple the actual device itself is, just a hard drive and a screen, but despite its simplicity, it hasn't quite functioned. So ultimately, I'm making the argument that the money that is invested in one device, we can actually reincorporate that money into several different platforms and then manage everything in-house ourselves. So that means we'll be getting much faster response times. We don't have to deal with a third party. We're saving money in the end, but we also get that functionality that we can't get from one sign. I mean, $4,000 is just exorbitant. We can buy TVs, iPads for the video center. We can put things in the board. I mean, we can do a lot more with the resources that it would take for one sign.
May I just speak to that? I think the proposal that Chris has mentioned is not that, he's not asking, and the Downtown Chestertown Association is not asking for $4,500 from the council. We're looking for a partnership. We're a small organization of about 50 merchants in the downtown area. Most of our money comes from annual dues.
I don't think we're looking for a partnership. You're speaking as an individual.
No. What we've been talking about is a partnership. That was the proposal that was discussed at a meeting. And the DCA had, and Kristen's here, and she can certainly speak to that, and you're here too. We talked about sharing the cost to get it back up and running. But the DCA can't. It can't do this alone. It doesn't want to do it alone. It's bigger than the DCA. So that's the point I wanted to make was that there's the proposal that's been discussed with the DCA is not that the town would take over $4,500. The proposal was, can DCA, the town, and the county come together and split this initial cost? And the DCA executive committee said we can split we're willing to split the initial cost. We believe that that can be done, and that's exactly what Bernadette Bowman indicated too, is she believes the county will do that. So we're not talking about spending $4,500. We're talking about spending, I divided it out, $1,133 or something.
Plus,
I didn't even-
CA got the grant, not the town. It was a pass-through. So, you know, what is their obligation to continue this project under the byways grant?
Well, I think
Partner?
it's an important question that we
Is it
need
the
to find the
partner
answer to.
or?
How much money did the county put forth in the first place? How much money did the county put forth in the first place, do you know?
Well, I believe the total cost of the sign was about $27,000. So the
How
part
many
was
$1,000?
$27,000, I believe.
27,000.
Bob?
Chris, I can't point to anything specific, but I believe when we first started talking about the obligation to the byways, that I know that Pam was on the planning commission at the time when this first happened, and she raised that question, and I remember asking that question, and I believe all the obligations were met.
Okay.
Somebody must have to pay for it.
In other words, like,
Well, yeah,
you
Bill
bought
would
the
have.
sign, you installed it, it was up and running, and as far as they were concerned.
And the reporting was done and everything, I believe that was.
All right, well, we gotta figure out what to do about this, because it's still sitting there right now with a blank screen, and we're going on 2 years now, and it's
Well,
just, you know.
Let's wait until Bernadette can come and.
Okay, so do we want to try to get Four Winds to come talk to us about what they can provide?
I've just been trying to find their website and I can't make it work, but I'm gonna do that at home. I mean, I'd like to see some of their products.
I'm in favor of Sam's proposal myself.
I mean, we can do it better ourselves. The town can do it better. You look at the money that we put into redesigning the website and the functionality that you get out of that, and how mobile friendly it is, okay? we're now rolling that conversation into starting a marketing committee that's gonna be tackling the same things that were just brought up. How do we market Chestertown? How do we engage visitors once they get here? How do we direct them to places? So that's, of course, in the works as well. So being able to do all that in-house, I think will be resources better spent. So when it comes to the actual partnership itself, I am saying we can certainly partner with the DCA. I'm just not willing to partner to keep an ISI going, because I generally believe we can go bigger and we can go bolder. And we can be more creative than putting all of our eggs in one basket that hasn't worked. So we can bring Bernadette in, and we can bring Four Winds in, but again, that's just kicking the can down the road, and I think we don't wanna kick this can down the road any longer.
How much it would cost to take it down? That's not gonna be cheap.
Minimal. We put it in sleeves, steel sleeves that are slightly bigger than the sleeves so that
Okay.
columns going in. It has to be unhooked electrically, and, but it comes out of the ground fairly easy. And then we have to repair the sidewall, replace the bricks where the footings were put in.
I mean, if Bernadette can come forward and say, tourism office can chip in and help support some of the costs, then, you know, if that partnership can be formed, then, you know, I guess the sign stays. But I wouldn't be willing to see town resources continue to be used on that side, period.
Well, how much are you expecting the town to pay for your idea?
What do you mean?
How much is your idea gonna cost the town?
In terms of the marketing committee, redesigning the visitor center, things like that, we'll have to see.
We have to buy some hardware.
We'll have to buy some hardware. All the software can be done in-house pretty easily. It's literally just linking a website to the actual device itself. It's not very complicated stuff.
Just need a landline, a hardwired internet connection.
So I think proposal-wise, conceptually, we can be a little more creative. We can be bolder. We can, I think, marketing the town of Chestertown, we can be a lot more creative than focusing on the sign itself.
I agree with Sam, with the exception that I'm not happy about it not being accessible on the days that the visitor center is not open.
Just like we're not happy that the
But
sign
the thing
hasn't
hasn't
been
been working
functioning.
for 2.5 years. I think that the duplication of effort to program that sign all the time if we did leave it there and get the new software, it just seems crazy. It's all the same information that would be going on the town website.
Plus, you gotta have somebody that's gonna look at it. Part of their job is to look at it every day and see it's working.
Right.
Cause I can see it being down there, and if you're a visitor and it doesn't work, you're not gonna say, well, I gotta go tell somebody this machine is not working. You don't, you just walk by and say, crappy thing's not working, and keep on going.
Sam, the technology that we're gonna use in the visitor center will be also applicable around town with screens and connection to our website, apps,
Oh, yeah.
your phones.
Oh, yeah.
I think if we made it, if this other thing happens, that we need to make that available in other locations so that when the visitor center is closed, that there are other locations where it could be.
Right.
All right, so we have to make some decisions. Do we all agree that the sign should be moved from its current location?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay, I agree that it should be moved, so I think we, by a 4-to-1 vote, agree that we should, at the very least, move the sign. All right, so that's a start. Would we like to see, to give Four Winds an opportunity, maybe in conjunction with Bernadette, to tell us a little bit more about what a revamped sign might look like?
Yes.
Certainly doesn't hurt.
No, I can't, they wanna come in and talk, it's fine. But I wanna see some numbers. You know, we have a lot of people come in here and they make these grandiose presentations, but they don't tell us how much it's gonna cost the taxpayers in my ward, who sometimes object to some of these things, more than sometimes, pay for it.
I agree,
It comes
yeah.
out of their taxpayer dollars.
All right, so we do agree that it wouldn't hurt to have, if we can, to have Four Winds come and tell us what they can do, and then maybe Bernadette can make her pitch about what her thoughts are, because I think that's fair, because she was involved with getting the grant, and I would like to give her an opportunity to let her sentiments be known. So we agree to move it, we agree to have Four Winds come in, and then it sounds like we're maybe a little bit split on whether or not it's worth the money to reinvest in a sign that hasn't been successful thus far, but we're at least willing to listen to Four Winds, and then.
I'm certainly willing to listen to them.
Okay. So Barbara, can you try to continue the effort to get in touch with somebody at Four Winds and have them come either at our very next meeting or maybe our first meeting in March?
Certainly.
And in the meantime, what I would suggest is maybe the representatives, maybe Bill, someone from DCA, and Bernadette get together and strategize. We've all decided we want to design mood somewhere else. Maybe we can do that sooner rather than later. I just feel like the sign sitting there blank sends a negative message to people at our busiest corner in town.
Well, we can move it without having to find a take it to. I mean, we can just move it and put it someplace.
Well, I think the fear was that if we just move it and put it in a shed, that
It's gonna stay.
it's probably not gonna leave the shed. But to me, I don't care, I just want it moved.
I mean, has this come to a vote within DCA itself, whether the organization as a whole is willing to support it or not support it?
No, no, it has not.
No. There's been numerous discussions among the members of the executive committee, 3 of whom are here tonight.
Okay. Because I mean, ultimately, like, I mean, it has to come from you guys definitively. You're either for it or you're against it, but if it hasn't gotten to that stage yet, then, you know, why are we dealing with a situation right now when DCA hasn't figured out, yes, we absolutely support it and we're willing to fund it 1/3 of the way?
Well, I think part of the reason that this is a conversation now is because Bernadette so strongly endorsed it. Because the executive committee of DCA had come to the point where we were not willing to commit the funds to get it up and running again. So what we would do was try to be involved in finding somebody who was interested in it, knowing that there is value to the hardware. I mean, the components that are there are worth something to someone.
Right.
So then when Chris and Barb met with Bernadette, and she so strongly endorsed the technology and the concept, that's why we're here. This
Right.
was not in the game plan 2 weeks ago,
Right.
but this is where we are now.
Since we only talk every 2 weeks to 4 weeks, I'll check with Byways or the granting agency about
Just to make sure.
obligations, and also with the remarks that you made about the zoning and the changeable sign. I do think that something like a breezeway takes it out of that public sign on the street. So if you're looking for an alternate location that needs to be shaded, that you look for something that doesn't trigger any issues like that. So on private property inside that breezeway, that's a whole different story. That's just my opinion there, but,
You gotta find it if it's in that breezeway. You may
if you
drive
have a
right
cup
up
of
by it.
coffee there, you will. But anyway, I will talk to the Alexanders about just that question, just,
Is that even an option?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll say yes or no, they've been all good about that since the fire.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that's as far as we're gonna get tonight, so I think we've agreed it's gonna be moved, we've agreed to have Four Winds come back, or invite them to come talk to us, and we'd like to hear from Bernadette, and I think that's kind of where it is at this point, but hopefully it'll get resolved within the next 2 months. Okay? Thank you, guys, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You're allowed to stay, I'm just saying, thanks for coming for that issue. That brings me to town manager's report. Bill Ingersoll.
That's, where's the best part of the breezeway thing? So it's Kent Center and Best Buddies, Washington College, on March 28th. Washington College Best Buddies is hosting a 5K run, walk, wheelchair race to raise funds for the Kent Center. Race times are from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. Map of the course is attached. This is the one that takes a little bit of the rail trail phase 2, and then goes onto the campus and stays on the campus. So I think the very first time it happened, well, actually, it doesn't even look like they're even on. So this is a request that I think is pretty much automatic when they're on public roads. But if they do want to be on the rail trail, I think we just basically let the public know that for a little while they'll be people on them.
Just ask them not to paint it.
That's what I knew it was something like that. Any objections to this?
Nope.
Okay.
That's great.
Second thing I have is we had a bid opening, give everybody a copy of this on Friday, for the Mabel Mumphrey Gateway Park project. Should do 6 of these. There were 6 bidders, and I'll just read the bids. The Dirt Express Company from Glen Burnie, $306,180. Lindstrom Excavating Contractors, Wharton, Maryland, $418,884.50. David A. Bramble, $242,819.23. Gateway Construction Inc., Clayton, Delaware, $246,725. Urban Built LLC, Baltimore, Maryland, $313,433.67. And George and Lynch of Denver, Delaware, $283,195.82. We're still doing a compilation of these bids. I think we have approximately $140,000 in this grant remaining. It's about $68,000 of this, the items for this are on Route 20. They're connected with the connection of the trail, phase 3 of the rail trail to the park, and under SHA requirements. We believe we'll be able to use some of the gateway funding that we got, bikeways funding that we got for the 3rd section of the rail trail to make this connection. And we're going over other items in order to launch this within our budget, but I'll be back on that. I do think that we should award this to the low bidder based on us going through negotiations to get it within range. It's clearly the bunching of the lowest bids is between 242 and 283. And we should work with the low bidder to come to terms on what the final project will be.
It's not like we don't know the work that he does. He
No,
actually paid most of the trail.
That'll free me up to start talking about the items. We have a line item for everything, because we thought, okay, what happens if, and they can tell us, hey, this is a little bit rich here. I think we can change the things that we have to do on a state road, and we want to make it safe, and we are doing things across the road to make the crosswalk safer that are required by the state. But we can ask them if they have any funding for the things that we're doing, because it will be an enhancement to their highway cross-section there. Also should start to slow people down as they come into town. So if you'll give me 2 weeks, I'll be back. I think we ought to just say, hey, we award this to the low bidder contingent upon us reaching terms about a final contract. But if you don't do that, it's still okay.
I would make such a motion.
I
Can we go with his verbiage, or do we want to repeat it?
I have it.
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion that's been seconded. All those in favor to go with the low bidder?
All right.
Any opposed? We unanimously endorse. We'll go on with the low bidder.
And the third thing is the Chester Grass is just around the corner. And I think the nice people from the community food pantry sent you a thank you for your generous support of Chester Grass 2015 proceeds to benefit the area backpack programs. We hope to see you there. They sent you some tickets. So just please grab a few, and this is for Saturday from 1 to 5. It's right February 7th. it only came to the town hall, it didn't come to everybody. That's all the tickets, so take what you think is fair. I think it'll get you a bowl of chili. Oh, you didn't get one there.
Are you going?
So anyway, I think it's nice of them to thank you and send you a few of these things. It's a lot of fun. Have a parade and the food's pretty good. The tickets will get you started. And that's the end of my report.
Okay, that brings me to the mayor's report. Okay, this is actually pretty important. The first item under my report is the marina update. So I know you all are familiar that we basically went big and requested $4 million from the governor's capital budget. I did preface that request by saying it was going to be a difficult uphill challenge because of the budget shortfall this year in the state, as well as the changing of the guard in the state capitol. And in looking very carefully at the capital budget, it's very clear that we did not get an allocation in that budget. So that request was unsuccessful. The idea behind that was that if we could get a big chunk of change, somewhere in the 7 figures, that hopefully after the end of this coming boating season, we could address some of the infrastructure needs at the marina in a comprehensive manner. In other words, that would have allowed us to pull the existing docks out, dredge behind that, do the bulkheads behind that, relocate the boat ramp behind that, and do it all in one fell swoop. Because we did not get that allocation, what we're going to end up having to do is more of a piece-by-piece approach that's going to take significantly longer. So what I've done since we learned about this last week was I met with Bill and Case and talked about what can we do this year to start addressing some of the infrastructure needs at the marina. There's 2 funding sources that we've had lined up for actually quite a while, but without a drawn-up engineering plan and without certain permitting from the state, we've been holding up on acting on the funds that have been technically available to us from the state. One of those is a $200,000 grant from the, and tell me if I'm getting any of these agencies wrong, the Waterway Improvement Fund, which is basically to fix the bulkhead. And it's a matching grant, and we've talked theoretically about using the college's, I would think it's $194,000 donation as part of the purchase of the armory, to use that as a match. And what I would like to do is use that match with that grant this fall, let's say 2 weeks after dam rigging, starting in mid-November. We give everybody that's using the marina during the year several months of advance notice that this November, we're going to use those funds to fix the bulkhead. We're pretty confident that we could stretch that money to fix from about just downriver of the Cannon Street Pier that's used by Sultana and Nickel, and replace the bulkhead in front of the fish whistle, and then down almost to basically to where the boat ramp currently is. That's a real need. It's a need that the fish whistle owners have really been urging us to address as quickly as we can, and I think that's as quickly as we can get to it. The other source of funding that we have had lined up, and we just recently got the permitting that we need, is money for dredging, the tune of $500,000. It'll be difficult to do that with the docks in place, but at this point I don't think we're going to have a choice in that. I think concurrently or in close proximity to fixing those bulkheads, we're going to get some dredging done and at least get the basins inside of the outer slips, both by the boat ramp and in front of the fish whistle, down to a reasonable depth so that those slips can be utilized in future years. Additionally, we've been meeting with just about every agency that could possibly fund this. We've submitted a letter of intent to the Maryland Heritage Areas Authority for the new marina store and interpretive center. I will be meeting with a gentleman from the Federal Chesapeake Bay Gateways Network to see if he can help us fund a portion of the boat ramp, the new docks, and perhaps the marina store. We have great leads on some federal money for boat ramps in particular. So we're continuing to pursue options, but in lieu of a big chunk of capital funding from the state, that's the approach that we're going to have to take. I'm also going to make another charge this fiscal year at that same pot of money. Hopefully with enough lead time this year, I will be able to, what I'm gonna be doing in the spring is starting a letter writing campaign, so that this time when I make a call, I can say, look, I have a binder full of 400 letters from business owners, residents, elected officials, people that live out in the county, and I think what we need to do to get that capital money is show that there's broad-based voter support. Otherwise, we're so small, we can just be ignored, so we need to go showing that there's a lot of support for this initiative. So that's the plan. I wish I had better news, but it is what it is, and that's what I'd like to do moving forward.
Replace the bulkhead, are you gonna raise?
Well, that's, I wish I had a simple answer to that. That's gonna involve needing a cooperative agreement with the owners of the fish whistle that we're gonna be meeting with later this month. It's also gonna involve additional funds for the backfill that we need to raise the land behind the raised bulkhead.
Can you use it, I know it might sound crazy, can you use the dredging for backfill?
No. No, that's really highly regulated by the state, and you need usually an off-site area for putting the
It
school.
wouldn't be appropriating this wispy, clay, and you'd probably stepped into before and go up to your thighs. We also have a $200,000 grant with the waterway improvement that requires a match in the pipeline, which I hope we'll hear about this spring. We'll have to find a match, but some of the things Chris talked about, federal funds for the ramp, they're a match. So the tier 1 BIG grant that we got given, set aside for us, that's a match. It's federal. It's a match state with federal. So, and each time I guess we'll adjust when we go to, if we do get something from the governor, we'll adjust what we've already gotten from these other grants. We'll be asking them for less, but it's a good thing that we finally got we couldn't get a commitment from the state for this $500,000 for dredging until we had the permit. And the permit's on its way, I believe, so I expect it any minute, and that changed. They'll commit to us, and when we're allowed to dredge, I think we can't dredge after February 15th. 17th, it'll be on our permit when we get it. So you have to lay off because of the hatching season fisheries. But we go after it in the fall when we pull the last boat out of the water.
Do we have some place to dump it?
Yes. We have 2 places to dump it. This will give us the chance to maybe dump it at another spot that will not cost us anything.
That's the one I want.
Well, there's more permitting.
The other part of the marina update is we talked about hiring Locust Grove Studios, a gentleman who runs it, named Joe Carlick, who lives out in Kennedyville. He does incredible graphic 3D renderings of things. He's done sets for Nickelodeon, he's done sets for inaugural balls. We gave him the engineering drawings from Crone, and he's developing it's going to be about 8 full-color 3D renderings of the marina from all different angles, and it looks incredible. It looks so much better than the Macron engineering drawings, which don't give anybody a picture of what's possible down there at all. It's very technically sound, but not at all inspiring. So he's hoping to have his drawings finished by the end of this month. And at that point, I will feel like for the first time we've got all the tools we need to really put together a really nice package for somebody to fund. So hopefully that will help as well. So as soon as the rest of those drawings come in, we'll probably present them at a mayor and council meeting, and I would love to have them blown up and put on foam port, put out in the lobby so people can see. You know, it's really hard to get a sense of the vision when you just look at an engineering plan with, no features really shown. So that's the marina update. Playscape public meeting, it was agreed to at our last session that we would invite the winning artist who is going to get the grant to come, and he's agreed to come talk here, second floor of Town Hall, Monday, February 9th, a week from today at 7 o'clock. So if you have any questions or want to ask this gentleman about his design or safety features, and he's going to come basically give a presentation and then be there to answer any of your questions. So if you're interested, that's your chance to come interact with the actual artist. based on a request we got from the Washington Avenue Neighborhood Association, also known as WANA. They really are interested in working with SHA to improve the streetscape of Washington Avenue, especially the stretch from Spring Avenue up to Washington College. So we had agreed to submit a letter on their behalf. I'm just going to read you a quick excerpt. So this letter went to the Community Enhancement Program for Maryland 213 in Chestertown, Maryland. Dear Ms. Peters, the Mayor and Council have been advised by representatives of the District 2 office to submit a letter requesting consideration by SHA for Community Enhancement Program funding for Maryland Route 213 in Chestertown. Citizens groups have met with District 2 officials who recommend that these funds be considered to complete and improve the pedestrian network, to repair and replace deteriorated sidewalks, curbs, and gutters, and to correct drainage problems. The area they recommend for immediate consideration is from Water Street to Campus Avenue on Maryland Route 213. So basically, it goes on to say that we concur that that's a good request to make, and so we're making a request. And lastly, I'm sure Sam will elaborate on this, but we've already kind of quietly launched the website, the new website, but we'll be having a launch party, and I'm just going to say that it'll be this Friday from 5 to 8, and I'll let you fill the details in. Okay. That brings us to board reports. Why don't we start with Ms. Gross?
Well, I don't have too much. I would like to raise an issue for future consideration. I've had a couple of sets of comments from residents of the town and from a couple of business owners about the impact that the bagging of the parking meters has had. And I myself, as someone who comes downtown virtually every day, am seeing a lot of cars being left on the street for very long periods of time. I noticed from the minutes of our meeting of July the 7th, the resolution that we passed said that we would review this after 6 months. That is at the end of January. So I'd just like to put a notice that we need to do that. Suggest that we look at it at maybe our early March meeting. And that would give us all time to talk to our constituents, talk to the business owners that we come in contact with. I'm sure Linda will be doing that too. And to see where we're going to go from here. If it's going to be permanent, then, then what do we do about, do we take them out? We never did get the bags printed, the way we discussed. So I would just like to make sure that we keep that on the books. Sam, for the website launch, I'm noticing, actually both on YouTube and on the website, that the recent meetings, the videos of the recent mayor and council meetings are not there. There's the one that's always displayed on the website, it's going back to November the 3rd.
Okay.
So we need to make sure we can take the group for the party.
Okay.
James, you have a comment?
Yeah, I know maybe, we're in February, maybe the second one from January's isn't up, but I know the first one was up. What ends up happening is I'll upload them here and then leave, so if something times out, I don't find out till next time I go back to the website. But I don't know why they wouldn't be updated on the main website,
Well,
but.
maybe it's just the picture that's in the middle of the screen.
Okay.
It's Lainey Seckling, what she was talking to us about the A&E district.
That could be, yeah, we'll
Check it out.
take a look at it.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, I just love the new website, I'm using it all the time.
Great.
Okay.
Linda?
As far as the parking meters go, I will only canvass the businesses in Ward 2 because, they're my priority in Ward 2.
And I'd also
So
like us
I'll
to,
do-
I'd like us to take a pass once in a while by that new parking lot that we have provided
not
for
full at all.
employers, and it's not being used. And we need to encourage them somehow, or
I think we need to do that on a case, but I think we need to approach merchants and say, that parking's for you, and sign them up.
yeah.
Especially in the proximity of that lot, you know, proximal distal, you know, just
Yeah.
go from there and get people to use it.
draw is Saturday, so there will be, events going on all day. And on Friday the 13th, the Historical Society, Ken County, in the Bordley Building is having their Death by Chocolate sale. So if you have anything that you want to donate to the bake sale, they would really appreciate it. You can get a hold of Karen down at the Bordley Center. And I'm very proud to say that all of the business winners at the Chamber of Commerce gala event Saturday night were in Ward 2.
Good for you. Cool. Sam?
Okay. So yeah, the only thing of note to go ahead and report, as it's been frequently alluded to, is the launch party for the new website this Friday, and we'll have a chance to really delve into some of the other things that the website can do that people may not have explored already or figured out. So, but most importantly, we're going to talk about where do we go from here. So, you know, what the plan is, how we plan on utilizing the website, what it is exactly that we're going to do in order to get the name of Chestertown out there. So, I think that'll be a good event, and I'm very excited to see all the hard work that Jen has done. It's going to look swank.
So Sam, are you and like Francois gonna be kind of emceeing little demos?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that?
So we'll do like presentation style, or we'll do some live demos. So yeah, we'll go over, we'll touch upon
We'll
everything.
teach Marty, you know.
Right.
Teach
Will you be as well rehearsed as the Washington students?
Oh, yeah.
Had one to jump in and one
Right.
to They did a great job on that.
Okay, Marty.
So I hope that Kent News and the Chestertown Spy, that you guys can make it for coverage. All right. Great. Marty?
Yeah. Me? Okay. On the curb, coming down from on Washington Avenue, Washington College is getting ready to do some little demolition up there. I don't know whether that's going to affect that, or maybe they could work with them to.
Where are they doing demolition?
They're going to tear down the 4 West Corner.
Oh, is that coming up soon?
Yeah.
I'm going by the planning commission. The notes in the planning
Oh, yeah.
commission, they went in there and said they were going to do that.
The beginning of the new curb and sidewalk.
So that part of it can get taken care of anyway.
Yeah,
I
right,
think.
right.
Everything's pretty good in the fourth quarter. I talked to Bill, we need a little work on our parking lot, but we can't do it with the weather the way it is now, so we're gonna get that taken care of soon, and otherwise, things seem to be running pretty smooth.
Okay, good.
So I have one thing I did forget to mention. You might remember that at the first meeting of the month, I discussed the Arts at Chestertown group here. And they've got that big Chestertown Arts booth at the American Craft Council show in Baltimore that's coming up, and I'm planning to go over one day. I'd like to really be supportive of that. If anybody wants to join me, the retail show, the one that members of the public can go to, is the 20th, 21st, and 22nd of February at the Baltimore Convention Center.
All right, well, that concludes our board reports. There are no requests from the public to be on the agenda to my knowledge, so are there any questions from the audience? Yes?
I'd like to know who, what, when, and where for the public launch of the website, excuse me.
Okay, it's gonna be in the lobby this Friday, 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
Yes?
Question real fast. Talked about the $200,000 grant for the marina,
Yes?
and you said the town was gonna match that with
Yeah.
another 200,
Yes.
and then you talked about the $500,000 grant for the dredging, correct? And you said possibly starting November 2015.
That would be my ideal scenario, yes.
Okay. Just curious, I was just,
Yeah.
and the only other question, and I'm not gonna throw anyone under the bus, but I can honestly tell you that with the town parking, I mean, obviously, I'm a local, I know everybody, most people here. I can honestly tell you that most of the cars that you see just sitting there all day, I mean, I hate to say it, are business owners.
Yes,
So, I mean, you know, I don't care either way, because I really don't park there, but in reality, I mean, they're just hurting their own business.
That's went on for so many years. I brought this up once before, when before the banking had a little bit more parking, they used to have bank runs. One teller would go out every hour and put a nickel in the meter so that they could all sit on it.
Did the town ever think about selling permits, stickers?
that's been suggested, yes.
That's what happened.
Because I know, like, for the few summers that I lived in Dewey Beach, Delaware, in order to park on the street, you had to have a sticker that you paid $20 or $25 for the summer, and that
Yeah.
gave you the ability to park there.
Well, I think we're gonna be re-exploring this whole topic again soon, so come to the next meeting.
Oh, no, I don't, like I said, I don't care either way, I just kind of,
I brought it up
you know, when you notice something.
I mean, I agree. I was driving around, I got Liz's email on Thursday and it's afternoon, and so that morning, I drove around town at 7:30, there was plenty of parking everywhere.
Mhm.
And by 9:30,
And the stores were just full,
I
right?
wouldn't say it was full, but it was 2/3 full.
And also, just, there's a lot of lights that are out down at the marina.
Go.
Some along Cannon Street, but then the light along the dock.
If you want us, I'll go down there with you now, because I need to see them at night, so I know whether they're,
Okay.
whether we're paying Delmarva for them.
Okay.
The ones we're renting, we're paying for them to be on 24 hours a day. The
Okay.
ones that are out on the docks, I have to have them repaired.
Well, it's on the edge of the dock, along the parking lot.
Okay. Well, I need to, if you'll show me, that'd be fine.
He really just wants
Is
to
your
go get
bar,
some
is the bar
cocktails.
still open?
Yep. Bring your, oh, by the way, bring your ice skates. You can actually ice skate on the parking lot.
All right.
In front of the Sultana Pier, there's, the tide came in and now it, you know, it froze.
You think I can ice skate in the parking lot?
Sure.
I never could before, I couldn't ice skate before, but
Okay, any other comments, questions? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
We got it.